Hi everybody, I'm Blayne Tyler for Finding Sasquatch, coming again from northeastern Ontario. Sasquatch terrorized family at Ruby Creek. Okay, so this is the Chapman encounter rebooted here. Um, but the reason I'm doing this is that parts of the story, important parts, always get chopped off in the retelling and shortening of it. So first of all, this happened at near Ruby Creek in British Columbia along the Fraser River in September 1941. Okay, so I'm going to run a clip as I give you some more details here. I'm investigating a house that's about the same age um, as what they might have lived in. Anyway, Jeannie Chapman was home with her three kids, 9, 7, and 3, and a 5-year-old. The oldest boy, 9-year-old, comes in from the backyard, kind of scared and spooked, and tells mom there's a cow coming out of the bush, kind of like Cowman of Copalis Beach. Anyway, she goes out and looks and makes eye contact with this 7.5, 8 foot tall Sasquatch minimum. It was it easily stepped over a 5 foot high cow fence, as in Green's investigation. But anyway, she sends her 9-year-old in to bring a blanket out, and she covers the kids, and she immediately recognizes being this hairy being as an Omah, which is wild man of the woods, but we call Sasquatch. And she covers the kids to escort them through the backyard towards the river and the train tracks along the river. And she follows the river bank and tracks into the village of Ruby Creek. She doesn't actually live in Ruby Creek, but that's what the story got dubbed. So anyway, husband came home, didn't find anybody, seen broken fish barrels. Her house was vandalized a bit. The Sasquatch went right into the house and broke the fish barrels in their shed. And then he went in when he found tracks of them going into town, he went back into town and heard the whole story. And then a party returned and investigated. Right, so this is an Ivan T. Sanderson report. He went there about 18 years after the incident and found the Chapman family. And they were more than happy to relay the story, and he was very impressed with them and everything they told him. Now, here's another tidbit that gets cut off is that that's a Chapman house, by the way, is that these encounters happened for a week, not just one incident. Every night at 2 a.m., the Sasquatch would return and the dogs would go crazy. And here's another thing that gets chopped off, it would make gurgling, kind of whistle, garble talk that we all know about today.
Okay, so let's just go have a quick peek. That's a good Ruby Creek story without having to look inside an old cabin that puts it about the same age as the cabin house that the Chapmans lived in. But it's all rotted in there, so let's look through the window. The floor's given way, roof's given way. Pretty awesome. Old part of a piping of a wood stove. So the kid ran inside. There's been some flooding here. There's a ditch there. Kid came in, got his mom. Mom came out. Seen the Sasquatch across the field there, the open area. Um, Standing, watching the kid go inside, and the mom come out. The mom went back inside, grabbed the kids, ran to that's an old trail, I guess might have been where a rail went through. The creek is over there, it's flooded right now, so marshy area. She ran up the tracks, tell her husband, and the husband came back with a bunch of men from the railway, and they found Parts of their house was vandalized. The fish barrel was smashed open where they were drying fish or salted fish. I found tracks, and there's a 5-foot fence, 4 or 5 foot fence, cow fence that the Sasquatch easily stepped over in one stride. So pretty cool. Ruby Creek Chapman encounter reenactment. It's pretty hard to find the exact location, but it deserves being retold. And let's go find some Sasquatch.
Right, so since this is a reenactment, I went back to the train tracks where in the Fraser River would have been close to the river itself when she couldn't use the riverbank. So I did some investigation around the railway, and here's a couple clips of that and what I found.
Okay, so Miss Chapman ran out of her house, their kids in hand, hiding under the blanket, made their way to the train tracks and down to where her husband was working, Ruby Creek, which is on the other side. Anyway, I just wanted to film, these are prints. Not the best. I started off noticing one in the gravel, and then there's one like right, something going on there too. Not worth casting, but definitely not an animal. Something that walks on 2 legs, and they're not rounded at the top like a boot. They're like 8-inch wide, at least. The one up here is even bigger than that. So Miss Chapman ran to get her husband, adult Sasquatch. Approached her house, vandalized their drying fish barrels and stuff. Anyway, there's another one right there. I'm just gonna roll this round-shaped coal thing into it. There's another one right there. It's like 8-inch wide. Something stepped there or whatever, but then something bent that metal bar, step in there too. So that looked like, I can't tell left or right, but something was walking along here that was heavier than me, even pushing these big chunks of rocks into the ground.
Right, so here's a big adult male, 8 to 10 feet tall. Couldn't really tell. He's standing in a marshy area watching me do an investigation, just like I did with the train tracks, except I was on a hydro cut and I pulled that still from my pan when I filmed down the line. Anyway, here's the original clip of John Green.
In 1956, there had been several such reported sightings, which had been reported in small local newspapers. Mr. John Green, publisher of a newspaper at Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia, began investigating some of these sightings. Here is John Green to report on a sighting he investigated in 1957.
When I first came here in about 1957, it was still pretty well open. But all this has grown up since then. So what happened at that time was that Mrs. George Chapman, who lived in a house down by the river behind me here, she was in the house and the children were outside. One of them came in and told her that there was a cow coming out of the woods. So she looked out and she saw this man-like thing, but about 8 feet tall and completely covered with hair like a bear. And she knew it to be a Sasquatch. This was, quite a well-known thing to the Indian people. And she was frightened, so she took the children, ran down to the river, and then through the graveyard, which is right behind me here, and came out just about here onto the track, and then ran on down to Ruby Creek. Now, she'd really only had one quick look at the thing, so it wouldn't be that convincing a story, except that a lot of people immediately went back there and saw these enormous tracks. Mr. Tifting, of course, was one of them, and can describe just what the tracks were like and what they did.
Well, he came through the bush into the shed, or the lean-to of the house, and there was a barrel of dried fish or smoked salmon, rather. And he broke the barrel, and there was some fish eaten there and thrown around. And then he went down the river bank, and apparently took a drink, and then come back up on the other side of the house, through the garden patch, and up to CPR fence, and stepped with 1 foot on that side of the fence and 1 foot on this side of the fence. I can walk right over it. And the footprints was about 18 inches, like. And then he went across there and over to the next fence there and went right up the hillside. And that's as far as we could follow it. See.
Okay, awesome archive video with late great John Green. This is Ruby Creek, where Jeannie Chapman escaped to. Her husband found her later on. They moved out of that house after they had enough of the Sasquatch harassing them at night, for a week, and then they were interviewed 18 years after by Sanderson. And the sad thing is, about a year after he interviewed him, the family drowned in, I guess, a boat capsized while crossing the Fraser River. Ruby Creek is just south of Yale, BC, where basically the birthplace of Sasquatch research began. The first time anyone ever tried to prove Sasquatch exists by capturing a juvenile. And it was examined by the local judge, it was examined by the local doctor, and a bunch of other important people, newspaper dudes, and everybody else that was in town. They weighed it and everything else. And pretty cool story, important to Bigfoot history. A blanket was used to trick the Sasquatch into thinking that kids were still in the house. And other things got chopped off in the retelling in print anyway. Anyway, kind of a happy Mother's Day video with the mom protecting her kids, and thanks for watching.